Emma Carter stood outside the glass doors of the Riverside restaurant, watching wealthy diners laugh over wine and candlelight. Her worn beige dress hung loose on her thin frame, spotted with old stains from years of struggle. She was 32, but looked older, worry lines etched deep around her eyes from raising her daughter alone after her husband died. The matching app had seemed like a joke when her sister set up the profile without permission. Now here she was about to meet someone named Daniel Ross, who listed himself as an executive. Emma almost turned back 3 times. She thought about little Sophie at home with the neighbor eating the last of their pasta, wondering if Mama would bring back leftovers. That thought pushed her through the doors. The hostess looked her up and down with barely concealed disgust. Before she could speak, a man stood from a corner table. Daniel Ross was 38 tall, with dark hair and sharp features that belonged on magazine covers. His navy suit probably cost more than Emma made in 6 months. Their eyes met across the restaurant. Emma froze, expecting him to leave or worse, to laugh. Instead, Daniel smiled, walked over and extended his hand. The restaurant went quiet as people stared at the obvious mismatch. Emma. "My name is Daniel," he said warmly. Ignoring every judgmental look around them, "I am so glad you came." His hand was steady and sure when she took it. They sat at the table while whispers floated from nearby diners. Emma wanted to disappear into the floor. "Should explain." She started, her voice shaking. "I did not know my sister set this up, and I do not have much money for nice clothes. I came because I promised myself I would try to live again after my husband passed. I understand. If you want to leave." Daniel leaned forward, his dark eyes serious. "But kind. Emma, I run a company with 400 employees. He said quietly. "Every single day people smile at me because of what I have not, who I am. You showed up here, honestly, even knowing how it would look. That takes more courage than anything I have done in years." A waiter approached with menus, then paused, looking uncertain. "We will have 2 of your signature dinners," Daniel said, without breaking eye contact with Emma. "And please bring some extra portions to pack up afterward." The meal that followed felt like a dream. Daniel asked about her life and actually listened. Emma told him about working double shifts at the diner, about Sophie, who loved to draw, about the tiny apartment where they counted every dollar. She had not talked this much in years. Daniel shared his own story, too. How he built his tech company from nothing, sleeping in his car during the early days. How success brought money, but also loneliness, surrounded by people who wanted something from him. "My mother cleaned houses my whole childhood," he said. "She came home exhausted every night but never complained. You remind me of her, that same strength." Emma felt tears threatening. No one had seen her that way in so long. Across the restaurant, a woman in diamonds laughed loudly and whispered to her companion while staring at their table. Daniel noticed. He stood suddenly, and Emma panicked, thinking he was leaving. Instead, he removed his jacket and draped it around her shoulders. "You look cold," he said, though they both knew why he did it. The jacket smelled like cedar and something expensive. It felt like armor. They talked through dessert, about books and dreams, about the small joys that money could not buy. When the check came, Daniel insisted on those extra portions he mentioned. "For Sophie," he said with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Outside the restaurant, the autumn air was crisp. Daniel walked Emma to the bus stop, even though his car was parked nearby. "I would like to see you again," he said. "Not because I feel sorry for you, but because talking to you tonight reminded me what matters." Emma searched his face for pity or games, but found only sincerity. "I would like that too," she whispered. Over the following weeks they met, for coffee in small cafes, far from the judgment of high society. Daniel came in jeans and old sweaters. Emma wore her best dress, washed and mended carefully. He met Sophie, who immediately loved him, because he actually listened when she explained her drawings. Daniel never tried to fix Emma's life with money. Instead, he offered friendship and something that felt dangerously like love. 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday, Daniel took Emma to the park where Sophie played on the swings. "I have been thinking," he said, watching the little girl laugh. "My whole life I chased success, thinking it would make me happy. But sitting here with you watching your daughter play, I finally understand what I was really looking for." He turned to Emma and took her hand. "You showed up to meet me at your most vulnerable, and somehow you were the bravest person in that room. I do not want someone who loves what I have. Emma, I want someone who sees who I am. And I see you too." Emma felt her heart crack open. All the walls she built after losing her husband after years of barely surviving came tumbling down. "I am scared," she admitted. "I have been alone so long and Sophie needs stability. What if this does not work? Then we will figure it out together." Daniel said simply, "That is what people do when they care about each other." They married quietly a year later in a small ceremony with just close friends. Daniel never asked Emma to change. She kept working at the diner because her regulars had become like family. They moved into a modest house, not a mansion, because Emma said she wanted Sophie to understand the value of things. Years passed filled with ordinary happiness, morning coffee and Sophie school plays and quiet evenings reading together. Daniel discovered that his wealth meant more when shared, not shown. Together they started a foundation helping single parents get back on their feet. Emma discovered she had a gift for running it, knowing exactly what struggling families needed because she had been there. Sometimes they would drive past that fancy restaurant where they first met. "Remember when you showed up in that old dress?" Daniel would say with a laugh. "Best decision I ever made was staying in that seat." Emma would smile and squeeze his hand. "You did not fall in love with what I looked like," she would reply. "You fell in love with who I was brave enough to be." And that made all the difference. The story spread over time, becoming something of a legend in their city. The CEO who chose character over appearance. The woman who showed up authentically when the world expected her to pretend. Young people would ask them for advice about finding love. Daniel always said the same thing. "Stop looking for someone who completes you. Look for someone who accepts you completely." And Emma would add, "Show up as yourself. Even when it is hard, the right person will see you." They grew old together, watching Sophie graduate college and start her own family. On quiet mornings, they would sit on their porch drinking coffee as the sun rose. Sometimes, Emma still wore that old beige dress around the house. It reminded them both of the night everything changed, the night she was brave enough to walk through those glass doors, and he was wise enough to see past the surface to the extraordinary woman beneath true love. Emma learned was not about fairy tales or grand gestures. It was about someone seeing you at your worst, your most vulnerable, your most real, and choosing to stay anyway. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment telling us about a time someone saw the real you and loved you anyway. Your story matters too.